Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Murdoch DeFi YouTube channel. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Other DAO. Now, this is the first NFT-based yield-bearing treasury DAO that actually rewards the holders in USDC instead of actually inflating the supply like you would typically see with, for instance, like rebasing DAOs and stuff like that, where you run into these massive issues with everybody having way too many of the tokens because they're just printing new ones, and based on the inflation, the price of the underlying token actually starts to decrease. So they're not relying on that. They're actually paying rewards out in USDC. So we're going to be talking about everything that they have to offer. We're going to go deep dive into their actual documentation here, and then talk about the way that they're navigating kind of like their pre-sale. They're doing a copper launch LBP, which is a liquidity bootstrapping pool. If you are not familiar with LBPs, then I would definitely like you could make a whole separate video on exactly these copper launches. Very in-depth stuff. But that being said, we'll leave the links to all this down below in the description. I would highly recommend, after you watch today's video, make sure that you read through all their documentation yourself, understand what an LBP is or these copper launches before you actively jump into it. As you can see, this copper launch actually ends here in the next 23 hours. So this will be finished as of tomorrow. But that being said, guys, before we actually jump into the meat and potatoes of today's video, if you could please drop a subscribe if you haven't done so on the channel here. If you are new, definitely welcome to the Murdoch DeFi YouTube channel. After you subscribe, you're definitely want to consider hitting the notification bell, because all the content that I post here on the channel is very time sensitive. Obviously, everything in crypto really is. But that being said, and if you get any value out of today's video, I would greatly appreciate it if you could smash that like button for me while you're down there. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into their website, and we're going to touch on a couple of different things, right? So to the Other DAO. So the Other DAO is an NFT-based liquidity provisioning protocol with a price agnostic revenue model based on a complex yield farming strategy for other deeds by Otherside. So our price agnostic revenue model means that we do not rely on price action or inherit any form of other inflation, this is the name of their token, to fund the protocol participation incentives. Right, so they're not relying on any, price agnostic revenue model to be able to pay out the incentives that they're offering for their holders. So instead, staking rewards come from the collective yield from our DAO-owned Other Deed portfolio. We have developed a state-of-the-art yield optimization algorithm to ensure that all of our holders receive maximum returns. So the Other DAO protocol has a unique bear market solution, giving investors a risk-off method to accumulate USDC. If you're not familiar, USDC is a stablecoin, and just speaking in terms of my portfolio, it's the stablecoin that I'm much more comfortable, or the most comfortable holding out of them all. Obviously, over the past month or so, we've seen the collapse and the depeg of a couple different stable coins, but UST in particular. But that being said, for me, I have the majority of my stables held up in USDC and then some in BUSD as well. So that being said, to do this, it says, let's see, they have a protocol as a unique bear market solution, giving investors a risk-off method to accumulate USDC. So to do this, the DAO uses a treasury fund generated to purchase Other Deed, buy Otherside NFTs, and farm them for staking rewards. So even during price drops, the same staking rewards are distributed to the remaining holders with increased APR payouts. We pay more when the price drops. Other DAO pays extremely attractive staking rewards in the form of USDC. So like I said, they're having this pre-sale right now, which is a liquidity bootstrapping pool held over on Copper Launch to raise the initial liquidity, as well as reserve funds. And LBP is the fairest method of token distribution among early investors, preventing early investors from purchasing large portions of the other token. There's a link to be able to participate there. OtherDAO in numbers. So this is the treasury value for OtherDAO. APR is 486%, and some other social followers things. But that being said, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I know this is a lot of information, but I really want to dive into the documentation, because this is a great explanation of exactly what what OtherDAO is doing, right? So OtherDAO is a decentralized community-owned protocol governed by the dual-backed Other token. The protocol is designed around a price-agnostic revenue model based on a complex and revolutionary in-house yield maximization strategy for other deeds by Otherside. Our price-agnostic revenue model means that we do not rely on price action or inherit any form of other inflation to fund protocol participation incentives. Again, we've kind of been over that already, but let's go into this. How are we different? The Other DAO builds off this concept, however, introduces the idea of rewarding participants in a more sustainable way. Our NFT-based liquidity provisioning algorithm achieves this by leveraging other deeds to produce sustainable and reliable USDC yield. Effectively, this introduces the idea of a yield-backed governance token, whereby fixed supply and reliable yield creates a competitive floor price. This model allows individuals to value the token based on the value of its perpetual yield. This is very important to understand, right? So the model allows individuals to value the token based on the value of its perpetual yield, as opposed to the dubbed Ponzi-nomics of prior DAOs. It's not just DAOs too, right? It's Titano Fork, Seifu, all these things that we've seen, come pretty popular in the DeFi space since, I would say, late last year, Q3, Q4 last year. It's pretty much just been projects changing little things and trying to build upon things. Obviously, we had DAO season in December. Same thing, right? These Ponzi-nomics. Put simply, the value of their token is determined by how many individuals value their perpetual yield generated by the other tokens, which is irrespective of the price of the other token. Remember that. The yield, again, is not reliant on the price action of the other token. To put simply, we already read that. The yield is generated in a sustainable and uncorrelated manner through our NFT-based liquidity provisioning algorithm. Additionally, Other is backed by a static peg to be determined post-copper launch, maintained through a portion of treasury assets. In order for the DAO to build its treasury, it is a necessity to introduce bonding, whereby users are able to inject funds into the treasury in return for discounted or vested Other tokens. OtherDAO utilizes its sustainable USDC yield to create a system of perpetually increasing yield throughout our bonding mechanism, whilst contrary, this is achievable through bonding being the only source of other inflation. This results in a net zero APR delta, as the freshly minted Other tokens through bonding, if staked, will balance our APR to its value before bonding due to the increase in the treasury assets, and hence total USDC yield. Should the freshly minted Other tokens not be staked, this will result in a positive APR delta. Put simply, the APR can only ever increase through bonding. Hence, OtherDAO is effectively able to introduce the concept of sustainable inflation and perpetually increasing yield to DeFi. So very, very interesting stuff, very revolutionary stuff in my opinion. But how you can earn, you can leverage the OtherDAO protocol to earn USDC by staking your Other tokens as part of our revenue sharing mechanism. leveraging other DAOs, other deed holdings, or providing liquidity either manually or at a discounted rate through the actual LP bonding, which is going to be available upon launch. Again, still not launched yet. Again, remember this LBP ends in about a day or so. So in regards to their other staking, so staking your other is a simple task and enables users to access a portion of the USDC yield generated by the protocol, i.e. revenue sharing, dependent on the amount of other staked. Unlike many other protocols, other staking requires no locks. Simply deposit your other for as long as you want to receive passive USDC rewards. And this is, again, if you've been watching my channel here for any amount of time, I would say that we mainly focus on these types of passive income plays because that's what, at the end of the day, that's exactly what I'm interested in. Where can I put my money that is going to allow me to earn more money with it, right? So this is why this is attractive to me, because all you have to do is simply deposit your other tokens, and as long as you want to receive the USDC in rewards, then you can go ahead and keep that staked, right? So firstly, you need to make sure that you've purchased your desired amount of other tokens through Uniswap. If I've not mentioned this already, this is a protocol that is based on the Ethereum blockchain. So just keep that in mind if you are looking at jumping into the LBP, because of course, since it's on Ethereum, there's going to be gas fees associated with that as well, right? So users receive USDC rewards based on the percentage of other they deposited. Okay. When you are ready to stake, simply head to the OtherDAO DApp and deposit into the other revenue sharing staking pool. Again, some tokenomics here. The native token behind the OtherDAO is the OTHR, the other token. It boasts initial supply of 1 million and can inherit no form of inflation in order to encourage protocol participation. Meaning supply can only increase through an increase in treasury assets, i.e. through bonding, which we've already talked about, right? So initially we set 65% or 650,000 of our other tokens to the Copper Liquidity Bootstrapping Pool, or the LBP, which is an effective platform to raise initial liquidity for the other DAO as well as reserve funds. An LBP also acts as the fairest token distribution method amongst early investors, disabling early investors from purchasing large amounts of the overarching protocol. And this is one of the main benefits here of actually using one of these Copper launches. But as you can see here, total liquidity $542,213 so far, and we still have some time left. And I know typically with these Copper launches, you'll see an influx of people, starting to buy as we get closer to this timer countdown, or the countdown ending, I should say. So to find out more about the Copper LBPs and how LBP benefits from other DAO protocol, see this document here, which again, this is what you should be understanding. Again, like I said, I could make a whole video on Copper Launch LBPs and how they work and the benefit of them and the downsides of them as well. But for today's purposes, we're simply going to focus on the other DAO protocol. So if you wanted to collect some information from there, there's a way to do so. It's under the tokenomics section in the other DAO documents. So how is Other backed? So Other maintains a static peg whereby each Other is physically backed by a value to be determined post-Copper launch, providing price assurance and stability to investors. In addition, Other is a pioneer in the concept of yield backing, whereby each Other token is backed by a sustainable and perpetual yield, right? Going back when we mentioned that in the beginning when I started going over the documentation, these two forms of backing combined to make Other the first yield and asset-backed governance token. So the yield backing utilizes an NFT-based liquidity provision algorithm to effectively and consistently generate significant USDC returns for other stakers, providing protocol incentives without the need for inflationary tokenomics. And this is this is the biggest benefit, in my opinion, to this protocol, right? It doesn't have to rely on minting new tokens in order to consistently generate solid returns for the other stakers, right? So how does the static peg work? The static peg works by automatically selling other deeds from the other DAO treasury in order to maintain an arbitrary price floor to be determined post copper launch. Should the price of the other ever fall below said value, this physical backing works to give the protocol participants added confidence in the other DAO, in addition to yield backing other inherits. To put simply, the price of the other should never fall below this arbitrary value due to the static peg. So 50% of NFTs in the treasury are designated to be the backing of the token. If the tokens fall below an arbitrary amount, i.e. the static peg, the NFTs will be liquidated to buy back the token and maintain the peg. In the interim, these NFTs will be designated for yield generation purposes. So 50% of the NFTs in the treasury are designated for yield generation only. They are owned by the protocol deployer and carefully deployed through complex yield strategies to generate reliable, sustainable, and comparatively high USDC rewards for the other stakers. Very, very cool. Looks like they've got some other information set to be going on here as well. But overall, very, very cool stuff coming from Other DAO. And going into a little bit more information on their bonding. So bonds allow users to buy Other from the protocol at a discounted rate by trading against it, liquidity LP tokens or two other assets. The former are called liquidity bonds and the latter are called reserve bonds, right? So they have liquidity bonds and then they have reserve bonds as well. Bonds take a variable amount of time to vest, called the vesting period. And if you guys had spent any amount of time in, like rebasing DAOs where bonding was, real component of their protocol, then you should understand. If you don't, definitely read through this section on bonding. They give some examples of like some issues that they had with bonding with previous DAOs and exactly how they're different, which we'll kind of touch on briefly. So bonds take a variable amount of time to vest, called the vesting period. During this period, the other tokens give as payout to the bonder are staked and locked. After the vesting period is expired, the bonder can claim the other in full. So liquidity bonds help the protocol to accumulate and lock liquidity, while reserve bonds allow the protocol to grow its treasury. And as the treasury grows, then that is going to be used to essentially generate yield for the other stakers, right? The Other DAO offers both types of bonding on its website and how they are different. So bonds are attractive to investors due to the discount they bring in comparison to the market rate for an asset. For example, as a new investor seeking to enter the Other DAO protocol through Other exposure will be faced with two options, right? So you can either purchase the Other token directly on market through the DEX, Uniswap, whatever that may be, on Ethereum, or you can purchase Other through the bonding at a discounted rate to the current market rate. However, there is a vesting period on so there's a specific amount of time that you're going to get those tokens. Let's just say, for example, that the vesting period is over a 5-day period. Each day you'll have a certain percentage of those tokens unlocked to you, and that's how you can choose to go about jumping into the protocol that way as well. So in both scenarios, an investor seeking to actively participate in the protocol, i.e. through staking Other for passive, sustainable, and uncorrelated USDC yield, will be better off purchasing the Other tokens through bonding. It just depends on the reasoning why you're jumping into the protocol, right? The Other DAO is different in the fact that the Other is not minted for any purpose other than bonding, right? And this was the problem when we look at typical rebasing DAOs, things like that, where that was not the only way. That was not the only way that the new tokens were being minted, right? The new tokens were actually being minted through rebasing, which then causes a steep decline in the overall price action. And by the time that you would get your vested tokens to you, you ended up losing because the price just drops anyways. So it was a lose-lose situation there. Let's see. With new bonding, the increase in USDC yield is at least proportional to the increase in supply. In instances where a bond has matured, the underlying other staked protocol participants would experience a net increase in the USDC yield. Additionally, 25% of the gross USDC generated by the protocol is designated to repurchase agreements, whereby the Other DAO protocol agrees to repurchase other in order to maintain a positive bonding rate on all currently issued bonds. And effectively, this significantly reduces the risk of bonding for the Other DAO protocol by essentially ensuring that the underlying bond retains a positive bonding rate for the duration of the vesting period. So awesome stuff when it comes to the actual bonding of the Other token. Now, I would say that since we've gone through most of what they have to offer in their documentation, which is well documented, and I really appreciate that. What I suggest people do is not only reading through those documentations themselves, not only reading through what exactly is a copper launch and how those LBPs exactly work before you jump into personally, but you're definitely going to want to join their Telegram to get a feel for the community, talk to some of the team members. I know personally that there is a big marketing push for OtherDAO. I know that they have a shitload of very influential Telegram callers on board. So it looks like good things could potentially be coming from OtherDAO. I'm definitely going to be jumping in myself, and I'll keep you guys updated on how this unfolds over the next 24 hours or so when the protocol actually goes live. That being said, guys, if you got any value out of today's video, would appreciate if you could smash that like button down below, and we will catch you on the next one.